You may have seen some artifacts in your life. On TV or any other source, they often look like boring museum pieces. But imagine finding a single object that proves our history books missed a huge part of the truth. As we are diving into physical evidence that challenges the basic timeline of the world, these items are real, solid, and very confusing for people who think they have figured everything out. Let's walk through these strange finds together and look at the evidence that suggests our roots are far more mysterious than anyone ever dared to imagine. Number 15. The Sanxingdui Golden Mask. You have to hear about what they pulled out of the ground in Sichuan back in March 2021. It's like something straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. They found this massive treasure trove at the Sanxingdui site, over 500 artifacts made of gold, jade, and ivory. But the real showstopper was this terrifyingly beautiful battered golden mask. Here's the kicker. This stuff is 3,000 years old, and the craftsmanship is leagues better than anything else from that era in China. It's so off that researchers think it belonged to a completely unknown civilization that was already doing big things before the traditional Chinese culture even took root there. It's making people wonder if we've been looking at the wrong starting line for Chinese history this whole time. Imagine finding a high-tech smartphone in a Victorian-era basement. That's the level of confusion we're dealing with here. Someone else was there first, and they were incredibly talented. Number 14. The Lingu Dragon fossils. So, in 2018, these fossils showed up in northwest China, and everyone started calling them dragon bones. While they weren't actual dragons, bummer, I know, what they actually were is almost cooler. They found the remains of Lingualong shenki, these massive, long-necked sauropods. But wait, the math doesn't add up. These guys were stomping around 174 million years ago. Before this find, every expert on the planet swore these advanced dinosaurs didn't show up until at least 15 million years later. It's like finding a 1950s car in a painting from the 1800s. It totally wrecks the timeline of how dinosaurs evolved, showing the process started way earlier and was much slower than we thought. Plus, finding them in East Asia suggests the continents were still shoved together much longer than the geography books claim. It's a double whammy of, we were wrong, and honestly, it's hilarious how much one skeleton can ruin a scientist's week. Number 13. The Shimao Lost City. I'm telling you, China is hiding some wild secrets. It took 2 whole years to dig out the ruins of Shimao, and what they found has basically left the official history in tatters. This place was a prehistoric beast, the largest ruined city in China, built 4,000 years ago. It had everything: massive stone walls, fortified gates, palaces, and even giant sacrificial altars. For the longest time, people thought the gate was only 2,500 years old because it looked way too advanced for anything older. Nope. The pottery and jade artifacts scattered around proved this place was the peak of sophistication, while everyone else was supposedly just figuring things out. It's officially the richest, most important site in the region, and it proves that life 4,000 years ago wasn't just primitive people scratching in the dirt. They were building fortresses that looked like they belonged in a fantasy novel. Our ancestors were way more extra than we give them credit for. Number 12. The 1.6 billion-year-old red algae. This one is a literal scandal, and I'm genuinely annoyed it wasn't on every front page. A student in Sweden was looking at rock slices from central India through a microscope and saw something that shouldn't exist: red algae. The rocks were 1.6 billion years old. To put that in perspective, the official rule book says complex multicellular life didn't show up until about 600 million years ago. This discovery doesn't just nudge the timeline, it drags it back a cool billion years. We're talking about plants thriving on Earth while the planet was supposedly still in its boring billion phase with nothing but single-celled sludge. It changes everything we know about how biology works and how long it took for us to eventually show up. It's the ultimate everything you know is wrong moment, tucked away in a tiny sliver of Indian rock that lived 1 billion years before it was supposed to. Number 11. The Tomb of the Silver Dragon. Honestly, we've been told for ages that the Xiongnu people were just these wild, restless nomads roaming the Eurasian steppes. But then, around 2020, archaeologists in north-central Mongolia stumbled upon these two insanely fancy tombs that basically flipped the script. We're talking about the Tomb of the Silver Dragon, and man, it's a game changer. Inside, they found gilded silver dragons and a jade-encrusted sword, the kind of high-end loot a simple nomad wouldn't bother with. It proves these guys, who gave the Han Dynasty such a headache that China literally built the Great Wall to keep them out, were way more settled and organized than the history books let on. You don't build massive, elaborate underground palaces for your elites if you're just wandering around with tents. It's like finding out your outdoorsy, camping-obsessed friend secretly owns a mansion in the woods. Everything we thought about their nomadic lifestyle is officially up for debate now. Number 10. The Fuxian Lake Pyramid. You know how everyone obsesses over the Giza pyramids? Well, there's something way spookier sitting at the bottom of Fuxian Lake in China. Back in '92, a diver named Zhen Wei found what looks like a 70-foot-tall Mayan-style stepped pyramid hidden under 500 feet of water. We're talking 5 stories of stone, roads, and stairways just chilling in the abyss. Now, the official guys love to claim it's just natural rock formations, because if it's real, it means a massive, advanced civilization was building megastructures before the last ice age even ended. That breaks every timeline we have. It's over 100 square miles of ruins that shouldn't exist, sitting in a lake that's deep enough to hide a mountain. Whether it's a trick of the light or a forgotten empire, the fact that we have a Mayan twin in an ancient Chinese lake is enough to keep any historian awake at night. Well, now let's move to number 9, the Triquet Island hearth. Imagine your family telling the same story for 14,000 years, and everyone calling it a fairy tale, until someone finds the literal receipts. The Heiltsuk people in Canada always said their ancestors survived the Ice Age on a tiny strip of land that never froze. In 2019, archaeologists dug 15 feet down on Triquet Island and hit pay dirt, a 14,000-year-old hearth. They found charcoal flakes and wooden tools that carbon dated right back to when the whole area was supposed to be a solid block of ice. This doesn't just prove the oral history is 100% legit. It nukes the land bridge theory. If people were hanging out on this island back then, they didn't hike from Asia across Alaska. They probably had boats. We're looking at a group of survivors who watched the glaciers melt, and we only just bothered to look under the dirt to see if they were telling the truth. Number 8. The Kilwa coins. How does a copper coin from 14th century Tanzania end up on a beach in Australia's Wessel Islands? This is the mystery Mike Hermes dropped on the world in 2019. See, we're taught that James Cook discovered Australia in 1770, or maybe the Dutch did a bit earlier. But this coin is African, minted hundreds of years before Cook was even a thought. Then it gets weirder. Back in '44, someone found 5 more African coins in the Northern Territory that are 100 years old. Some people claim soldiers just dropped them during W2, but who carries 9th century Tanzanian pocket change into battle? The most likely and most world-breaking answer is that ancient African or Portuguese sailors were navigating the Australian coastline before the history books say Europeans even knew it existed. It's a tiny piece of metal that makes the Age of Discovery look like a late-to-the-party reunion. Number 7. The Sundarbans terracotta. So there's this fisherman, Biswajit Sahu, who's just out doing his job in the Sundarbans when he starts pulling up more than just fish. He spent years collecting these weird terracotta beads and tiny figurines, eventually showing them to the pros in 2016. Up until that moment, the experts, who were mostly British guys from a century ago, insisted nobody lived in that swampy region until about 1,100 years ago. Well, those little clay figures? They're Mauryan, That means they're 2,300 years old. Sahu single-handedly shoved the history of the entire region back by 600 years, just by paying attention to the mud. It's a classic case of the people actually living on the land knowing way more than the academics sitting in offices. The whole official timeline was basically a lazy guess that a guy with a fishing net managed to debunk while looking for dinner. Number 6. The Quirinal Hill dwelling. Okay, let's talk about Rome. We all think we know the Eternal City, right? Well, in 2021, they found this massive building right in the heart of the city on Quirinal Hill that's about 2,500 years old. It's freakishly well preserved. We're talking original wooden beams and clay walls still standing. Now here's why people are losing their minds. That specific area was always supposed to be a necropolis, basically just a big cemetery. The living part of the city was supposedly way further south. But finding this grand, aristocratic home proves that archaic Rome was sprawling much further than anyone dared to guess. This wasn't just some lonely shack. A house this fancy means there had to be a whole neighborhood around it that we haven't found yet. It basically means the ancient city map we've been using is way too small. Rome wasn't just big, it was a prehistoric metropolis that was already breaking its own borders. Number 5. The Doc Adams baseball laws. You're going to love this because it's a total "the hero is a fraud" moment. We've all been told Alexander Cartwright Jr. is the god of baseball. His name is literally on the plaque in Cooperstown. But in 2016, a dusty set of documents from 1857 was pulled out of a desk drawer, and it completely nuked his legacy. It turns out a guy named Daniel Doc Adams was the real mastermind. He's the one who actually sat down at the New York City Baseball Convention and decided bases should be 90 feet apart, games should last 9 innings, and teams should have 9 players. Cartwright didn't invent the soul of the game. Doc did. It's a classic case of the wrong guy getting the glory for over a century just because nobody checked the paperwork in the drawer. It's time to rewrite the Hall of Fame, honestly. Number 4. The Borgring Fortress pottery. Ever feel like you've been ghosted? That's basically what historians did to the Viking Age. They've always told us King Harold Bluetooth built these massive ring fortresses in the 10th century as quick military flexes, only to ditch them a few years later. But in 2017, a bunch of pottery shards found at the Borgring site in Denmark told a much noisier story. These ceramics date to the 11th century, long after the experts said the lights were turned off. Even crazier, the gates had clearly burned down decades earlier, but people just kept living there anyway, probably turning the military base into a cozy neighborhood. It's wild because it proves these iconic structures weren't just for show or war. They were surviving, breathing communities for 100 years. It's like finding out an abandoned mall has actually been a secret, thriving apartment complex for decades. Number 3. The flooded Tibiscum fort history loves a good barbarian invasion story. It's dramatic and easy to blame. For centuries, everyone assumed the Roman fort of Tibiscum in Romania was burned to the ground by pillaging tribes 700 years ago. But when scientists actually looked at the ruins, they didn't find ash or spearheads, they found river mud. It turns out the Timus River got angry and basically wiped half the fort and the entire civilian town off the map in a freak flood. The barbarians were just a scapegoat for a massive natural disaster that the Romans couldn't handle. It's pretty hilarious that for nearly 2 millennia, we blamed scary outsiders for something that was actually just a really bad rainy season. It makes you wonder how many other wars in history books were actually just people getting flooded out and moving to higher ground. Number 2. The Monastery of Deer. Imagine losing a whole building. Not like your keys, but a massive, bustling monastery where the first ever Scottish Gaelic was written. For hundreds of years, people hunted for the home of the Book of Deer, a 10th century text that's basically the birth certificate of the Gaelic language. In 2018, a team finally found it using ground-penetrating radar in a random field north of Aberdeen. There was nothing left to see with the naked eye, just a flat patch of grass hiding one of the most important religious sites in history. The book itself has been sitting safely in Cambridge since 1715, but the ground where those monks actually dipped their pens into ink was missing for a millennium. It's a haunting reminder that even the most sacred places can be swallowed by the earth until someone points a high-tech laser at the dirt. Number 1. The Goswitz Ghost Village. This is some straight-up Twilight Zone stuff. Back in the 13th century, a duke named Bolo the Strict decided to build a high-end, upmarket village in Poland called Goswitz. He bought the land, set up 20 fancy stone foundation farmhouses around a town square, and waited for the gold to roll in. It was supposed to be the place to be. Instead, the whole village vanished from every record after only 50 years. It didn't just fail, it disappeared so hard that it became a literal forest. Fast forward to August 2017, and archaeologists found it using aerial laser scans. They realized the town had been hiding in plain sight right outside Strasellen for 700 years. Nobody knows why everyone just walked away from a brand new, expensive settlement. It's like a medieval real estate scam where the buyers just evaporated, leaving the trees to reclaim the luxury real estate. Look, the truth is that our history books are more like best guesses than solid facts. These 15 finds prove that humanity has always been weirder and more advanced than we're told. If you're into uncovering the secrets they don't teach in school, then hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment with the discovery that blew your mind the most. Let's get the conversation started. See you at the next one.